the issue is that every film it's kind of a fragile thing. And if it doesn't happen when you think it's going to happen, then now you kind of have to put everything back together, right? Actors, everything dissipates. And the question is always, can you get those pieces back together?
The Fred Minnick Show is brought to you by Michter's and 291 Colorado Whiskey.
And joining the Fred Minnick Show is Bill Fay. Now, full transparency, everybody. Bill and I, we share a lawyer. In Brian Shaw. So, Bill, this is probably going to be one of the rare moments where, two people share a lawyer and they're going to say nice things about him. I love Shaw. I mean, that guy's like the best lawyer a fella could ask for.
Brian Shaw's getting a good shout out here.
Yeah. How long have you worked with him? How long have you worked with him?
Actually, Brian's been a friend for a very long time. But we've only been working together for just the last couple of years, really, since we started this new company.
Oh, wow.
Brian handles our legal on that.
Yeah, he's just a great guy, and he introduced us, of course, and I'm really glad he did, so he could get you on the show. And anybody can go take a look at your IMDb page and just see the A-list shows, the A-list movies that you've produced over the years, from 300 to Independence Day to probably my favorite of everything you've done, The Hangover. And we're going to talk about all that. Why
would that possibly be your favorite, Fred? I don't understand.
I laughed when I watched The Hangover for the first time. I laughed so hard, my side hurt like the next day. I mean, it was like the best like comic relief that I've ever had. It was amazing. But when you're on a set like that, do you just like start busting out laughing? I mean, do you like, it's coming, but is it still funny to you in the moment when you're like on the set?
Absolutely. It's because, especially on The Hangover, we just had so many great actors. If you look at the three guys and Ken Jeong and the whole crowd. So it may be funny and you may have laughed when you read the script, but when you watch it live, the crew is always busting out laughing. And if you're lucky, nobody is busting out laughing in the middle of the scene.
All right. So there's a scene where you have an actor, an older fella, they're in the hospital and he's completely nude, and like they're going into the room and everyone's he's dropped trout, just everything. I don't know how you all did not just die laughing. That you could feel like the energy from like Bradley Cooper and everybody just like wanting to just like bust out laughing in what was such a hysterical moment. Like, I don't really know how you keep it together with something like that.
Yeah, it's an incredibly fun experience when you work on a comedy like that, because it's and I haven't done that many comedies. So being on the set when you're shooting something like that, where there's so much comic energy going on and there's so much fun to be had. It's obviously it's serious too. Every day you're trying to beat the light, or there's a problem with a location or some crazy thing of some kind is going on, but you can really kind of get absorbed into the fun of the moment, and it's a great experience, especially when you see really good comic actors playing off each other.
Yeah,
it can be a lot of fun. But yeah, there's still constantly things coming up. One of the first days I was on the set was the day that Ken Jeong jumps out of the back of the car trunk, and the script says, jumps out of the Mr. Chow jumps out of the car trunk, in his whitey tighties, and starts smashing people over the head. And we were setting it up and everything, and seconds before Ken said to Todd Phillips, the director, Ken Jeong said, "It would be really funny if I jumped out naked." And Todd, of course, went, yeah. And then I'm going, yeah, that sounds great. And then about 5 seconds later, I go, oh, crap, I've got to call the studio. because we have a thing called a nudity writer in your contract. And we did not have a nudity writer for Ken or anybody, you know, because we weren't kind of expecting that. So there was a lot of scrambling at the last minute. And of course, Ken went, yeah, let's do it. It was my idea. And so it ended up not being a problem, but it's kind of one of those things where you're having a great time and then suddenly you remember you have to be working and figuring out stuff too.
That's awesome. Yeah, going back to those contracts, you know, we started talking about our lawyer and he, you know, of course he'd be the stickler that calls that out. But what an interesting thought, because, you know, we just see what's put up on the screen and, you know, we're really taken into it, but there's so much that goes into producing a movie. I mean, so much. Like you got to close off streets, you got to rent hotels. I mean, and you know, when you're in the executive producer role, I mean, you're essentially in charge of everything. You know, you got to do it all.
Yeah, it's really an amazing operation because every film you do is completely different. It's like you're almost starting a new business, and the new business is not the same as the last business you did. I mean, when we did Independence Day, you know, I mean, we had to figure out, you know, we basically had, I don't know, 600 or 800 people probably working on the visual effects for that movie. And we were figuring out new stuff and some stuff that hadn't been done before all the time. And it's kind of this race to see if the technology is going to get done in time for you to release the movie. So it can get kind of stressful from that point of view. But the great thing about it is you feel like, I mean, for me, I learn something every time I make a movie. I mean, you get this amazing education in something that you didn't know before. When we did The Patriot, I learned more about the American Revolution, and especially the American Revolution in the southern states, than I would ever know in my lifetime. And it's kind of this great bonus you get from the job. So everything is always a little bit new.
Now, on these sets, do you ever bring bourbon, or does anyone ever have like a nice case of something good in a trailer?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actors know how to take care of themselves pretty well. And they also get the most amazing gifts from everybody. They do even better than we do. Yeah. But I've gotten a lot of great booze from studios and directors and people I've worked with at the end of shows. We do pretty well.
Well, I can almost guarantee you that no one has ever sent the stuff I sent you. And I'm going to go ahead and go through that, and we'll keep on going on. I sent you a Michter's 10-year-old. It's a very good. It's a very good bourbon.
Ready.
It's fantastic. Of course, Michter supports the show. I sent you Henry McKenna, the Bottled and Bond. Now, this was the winner of the best whiskey at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition in 2019. Mm-hmm. I sent you King of Kentucky. This was the winner of my 2019 Best American Whiskey. I sent you
131 proof. That's serious.
Just a touch of proof. I sent you Eagle Rare 10-year-old, which, you know, it used to be a great everyday pour, and now it's very difficult to come by. And I think what is a rising star in the business, 291 Distillery out of Colorado. And the headliner of our tasting, what many consider to be the greatest bourbon ever made, the 16-year-old A.H. Hirsch. This was distilled in Pennsylvania and bottled in Kentucky, distilled in 1974, in the spring of 1974. So it's a 16-year-old beauty that many people think is the greatest ever made. And I'm really ecstatic to taste these with you, Bill. But you're also jumping in the spirits business. You started a new company. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's based on an invention that a friend of mine from graduate school, who's been one of my best friends ever since, and a couple of people that he works with made. And about 5 years ago, they have 22 patents between them, and they do a lot of experimenting and coming up with new stuff that then they patent and sell. And about 5 years ago, they were experimenting with this electronic process that was having an effect on alcohols and actually breaking down certain alcohols into other alcohols. And they started experimenting around with it on spirits and found that it was having a really positive effect on it. It was actually smoothing the taste of it, and it was bringing out different flavors in the spirit. And they brought it to me. I tried it. I was very impressed. Wasn't quite sure. I didn't trust my own instincts quite well enough. So I put us all on a plane to Miami, and we went down. A friend of mine is at Southern Wine and Spirits. And so we went down to their head spirits taster and head of spirits, Rudy Ruiz, who has since retired, and tried it for them. And they were very impressed too. So I jumped in with both feet. We're now building out the device so that we can actually install it into a distillery, and it'll process in real time as it goes through there. And we've had really great response from everybody on it. So
it's kind of like it's kind of like a filtration system, like after the product has been created. It's like it's like the kind of like they do non-chill filtration. You would use your device instead of chill filtration.
Yeah, and it actually does. It does some very positive things to the spirit. We're anxious to actually experiment with doing some pre-barreling processing to see what kind of effect it has on that. But obviously, that's a little bit longer process. So in terms of seeing what the results are.
Yeah, so you guys are just kind of beginning. Is there any? What have your tests been like? Like, what have you tested it on?
We've probably tested on at least 150 different liquors. Everything from the cheapest Trader Joe's Rebel Yell, which I confess is pretty nasty, and we make it quite a bit less nasty. But it's the lipstick thing. Like we've tried it on a bottle of Hibiki, $700 Hibiki, and it actually can smooth and improve that too. So it's really kind of it's an interesting process because every liquor is a little bit different. You kind of have to experiment around with it and see what the exact right amount of processing time is. But the fact that we can do it fast enough that we can actually do it as a flow-through device in the distillery makes it something that's really kind of commercially viable. And we just started talking with distillers. We're getting a great response from the first couple that are ready to start using it right away. But we only have one machine so far, the prototype. Now we need to actually build out a bunch more, which we're doing over the next few months.
That's very interesting. There's nothing like being in demand starting out of the gate. So that's pretty fascinating. So
it's a lot of fun too. It's a great change for me. I mean, it's definitely different from the movie business.
So does this mean does your transference over here? Does that mean you're kind of like stepping away from movies?
Not completely. Movie business is too much fun. Yeah. I've got a couple things that are still in development. I'm actually working on a stage musical right now too. That's based on a movie. We're just securing the rights for that. So yeah, I'm going to keep my foot in that. But certainly, at least short term, I'm full on in this, and we're having a great time with it.
That's awesome. And what are we'll talk a little bit more about this as we're going. But do you see any similarities between the spirits business and the movie business?
Yes, they both tend to attract a lot of pretty big personalities, which I think is kind of interesting. And so I think that's a little bit of a similarity. And certainly the fact that marketing is such a critical part of the business, that's certainly true with movies too. I mean, it's it's a critical part of if the marketing team hasn't figured out a way to get people to show up to our movies, the fact that the movie's good is not going to make that much of a difference. You got to get them to show up.
Well, let's go ahead and start with our first pour. We're going to start with the Eagle Rare.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating that you bring up the marketing because, like, you know, as like a bit of a, I'd say I'm a purist, you know, a student of history, and you see so much like false history being, you know, played off in history of whiskey with brands that it gets exhausting, and you see a little bit of it with movies too. Like they'll just take like one thing and like run with it. Like they'll take like the one clip where everything hits and they just run it over and over, and the movie's just horrible. And then
that's the movie business is famous for that. You see a trailer and the movie's never as good as the trailer, right?
And sometimes the movie's better than the trailer, you know? It's like, and there's like nothing to it. And I think that's why there might be such a passion for independent films, you know, because they don't have the marketing budget, but there's a lot of good quality there.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is for sure.
So have I ever taken you through a little bit of my tasting regimen before? I know we've chatted a few times.
Haven't. Oh, by the way, I have to show you. I've got official Bourbon Trail whiskey glasses.
Oh, fantastic!
Tasting glasses.
Right on. So this is I like the Glencairn. It's my favorite glass to kind of nose and taste with. And I like to start the process by just analyzing the color. And, you know, the color, when it goes into the barrel, it's as clear as the water from your tap. And every single day it's working in and out of that wood. And, you know, to me, this is like where we kind of like notice the art. You know, you just see some beauty in it. And this has got a really nice, it's kind of like a rustic, just a shade under amber for me. And it's just a beautiful color. And I just like looking at it. And like you can see, when something hasn't been filtered, sometimes you can see like little like white waves kind of flowing through. You know, that's like the flocking. It's like the fatty acids that are just kind of float, you know, just kind of chilling. And so sometimes too, you might see a particle here or there. But, you know, it's just fun to look at. And so I like to look at it swirled around, bring it to the nose. When I bring it to the nose, I like to open your mouth. That way you can pick up more than just like the alcohol fumes. It's kind of like go all around the nose, up, down, side by side. And this is definitely smelling, like, you know, some vanilla custardish, kind of like some sweet potato pie.
I was going to say like a little butterscotch or something. It's very light though. It's definitely got a light nose.
It's not jumping out. You got to work at it a little bit. And then when you taste, you just want to put a little bit on the palate, kind of feel it, like walk back a little bit. What do you think of our opening act here?
It's nice. Very good.
It's like I mean, we're talking about Eagle Rare here, the very drinkable. This used to be like an everyday product to buy. It's 10 years. You know, they got the age statement there on the back of the label, kind of buried. But you know, this used to be something you'd find in the store all the time, and you know, those days are gone. You know, it's difficult to get now, but when I see it, I buy it. It's a good product.
It's really nice. It's very light in a way, and it's kind of got a little cinnamon or something to it. As I mentioned to you, it's a little intimidating for me to be testing with you. It's like a pro basketball player asking me how how I break down the zone defense.
Well, I would tell you, like, this is something that we can all train ourselves to do, just to taste and smell. But I consider myself the luckiest guy in the world, you know, to have had the opportunity to get into this space and then to kind of grow it outside of spirits. And, you know, I mean, if you'd have told me when I was watching The Hangover I was going to be interviewing Bill Fay drinking over some whiskey one day, I'd have been like, get out of here. You know, I mean, to me, this is the privilege I have, is getting these kinds of opportunities. And it's awesome. I love it. I absolutely love it. And, you know, I hope I don't come off too intimidating.
We can all agree that you've got a great gig.
Well, I appreciate that.
But I do too, so.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're living the dream, and what I've been saying lately, we're living the dream and the grind, you know, because if you're not grinding, you're not dreaming. So the next one we want to go to is going to be the Henry McKenna, and so basically the first thing we're going to do is we're doing a taste off between 10-year-olds, the Eagle Rare, the Michters, and the McKenna, and we're going to pick a 10-year-old champion, if you will. And as we what's that? The McKenna, yeah. So as we kind of like get into this, one of the show that probably I think that the movie that you worked on that may, in my opinion, had the greatest impact on the movie industry was 300. Like, after that kind of, you know, cinematography, that the graphics in there and everything, you know, the close-ups and just like combining the visuals with humans, you just started seeing so many movies like that. And 300 really, I mean, that changed how movies were made in so many ways. What was it like working on that film?
It was an amazing experience. First of all, interesting side note, we shot it in Montreal, Canada, in the middle of winter, in a big studio warehouse. There's only one exterior shot in that entire movie. The rest of it was shot in this giant warehouse. So we had a bunch of guys in leather Speedos running around, and it was 5 or 10 degrees below zero outside every day. So quite interesting. But it was amazing. It was one of those things where it was all the vision of Zack Snyder, the director, and, you know, taking that material, you know, the original 300 graphic novel that is so amazing, and turning it into a film. And he really, his goal was to make the movie feel like a graphic novel in every way. And I mean, if you go through the graphic novel, you'll see so many scenes that are almost, in fact, I have a few posters of it where we've got the graphic novel juxtaposed to the movie, and it's almost the exact same shot. Even that thing where you see the slow motion and then the blood splatting out and like the blood freezing in the air for a second. That's all Zach trying to recreate that graphic novel feel. It's interesting. The studio originally, you know, they had made Alexander, I think, or Troy it was, which cost $250 million and had Brad Pitt and all that crazy stuff. And their first thought was, there's no way you can make this movie for, you know, a quarter of that amount. And, or less than a quarter, now that I think about it. And I don't think anybody could quite envision what they had in mind. So, you know, we were talking with Zach, and Zach basically went out and shot a 90-second piece, just one scene, showing how it worked. And then everybody saw that and went, oh, now we get it.
Wow.
You know, that really was what put it over the top with the studio, is that little 90-second piece where you can kind of see it was Leonidas going through and, you know, slashing and that kind of super speed camera, variable camera frame thing that really sold it. And then the rest, in terms of the look of it, was, again, Zach working with a team. There was one guy that's just this incredibly talented artist, and his job was to draw the backgrounds, create the backgrounds that are put into every scene. As I said, the entire thing was shot in front of a green screen, pretty much. Wow. So, you know, that guy, Grant Freckleton was his name. It was his job just to create those backgrounds, and he did an amazing job. One other quick thing about it is that we finished the movie. We thought, man, if we made the Ultimate Guys movie, and will any women show up to see this movie? I don't know. We did the first test screening. Guys rated it 96%, which is one of the highest scores I've ever seen, like in a test screening. Women, 95%. And we went, wow, we got a hit. If this can be a date movie, we've got a hit.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't film it outside and the fellas in their Speedos, you know. So.
Oh yeah, it would have been a lot. It would have been very embarrassing for all of them.
Oh, well, thanks for sharing that. I mean, that movie just was just amazing. And you know what? It's funny, like you said, it's the Ultimate Guys movie because it's in that like, you know, bro hangout movie watch-a-thon with like The Godfather for me. So, and then the sophomoric Tommy Boy, you know, so like there's like it definitely is in that conversation of guys just kind of watching and hanging out, you know. It's a great movie. Great movie.
Yeah, we had the same thing with I mean, The Hangover was the same thing too, by the way. When we were making that, we thought, you know, women are going to like this, but it's really a guy movie. And how can we possibly ever get to like the level of success that something like The Wedding Crashers did, which had two important female characters, and we got one important female character, but it's not the same. You're following these guys. And the same thing, when we tested it, women loved it. It was like, yeah, we were always wondering what those guys did when they went off on their bachelor parties.
Yeah, I think we all just want to laugh too, you know. And if it's funny, it's funny. But so here we come to the Henry McKenna. Now this is one where my name is forever attached to it because, you know, I picked it. I was a part of a team that picked it best whiskey, and then after that we couldn't find it. And believe me, if I could go back in time and tell myself not to do that, I probably would, because this was my daily pour once upon a time, and now I can't get it. So it's my own fault. But
you needed to buy about 20 cases of it first.
Yeah, that's right. I needed to stock up. But I mean, even in my private tastings,
you're like the guy giving
I'm what
you're
now?
Like the guy giving a great stock tip to everybody before he buys the stock himself.
Yeah. I wish I took advantage of that stuff, but I don't. Yeah, that's definitely ahead for me, but that's also my bias is well known for this one. It's quite tasty.
Yeah, delicious. Very flavorful. Got a little bit of vanilla smell to it.
Now you're jumping into the spirits business, and you know every palate is different, but you know the sweet notes are like on the tip, and the savory is in the middle, and then like the bitterness and spice is in the back. Sometimes you'll get some bitterness in the middle too. And sometimes you'll get bitterness on the sides, but it's like understanding where things hit on your palate is everything. You know, it's so important for the training regimen of like, you know, becoming a taster in this space. So
right. And I remember seeing the little thing when I was a kid. They had that little diagram of the tongue, and the sweetness was on the front of the tongue. Yeah, if I remember, but. So it's sweet on the front, and then what in the middle?
So the middle is kind of like savoriness. So like your breads, your grains, your cornbreads, maybe a pie crust. You know, things that would be savory. and then like spice and bitterness will be, spice will be like in the back, and the bitterness will be between the middle and the back. And then you also have taste buds in your throat and in your stomach, and those can have an impact on the finish. So if like you feel it on the way down, you can taste a little bit of it on the way down, and the length of it on the being on the palate and what you're still tasting, that's your finish. But it's tasting spirits is very different than tasting wine and food because of the alcohol percentage. So I'm of the belief that you need to condition your palate, or in other words, drink a lot of spirits to understand them. If you come in without really sipping on a lot of it, it's just going to be overwhelming and too hot, and it'll blow your head off. So I mean, you take someone off the street, they don't drink. You give them like Pappy Van Winkle 15-year-old, which is like velvet butter, gorgeous, and they taste it, and it's like they're like, oh my God, this is like burning me up. I mean, they don't get it. So like, I don't think whiskey is for everybody, or fine whiskey is for everybody. I think you gotta condition yourself for it.
Got to develop a taste for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think about, I'm sure everybody has the same experience that I had the first time you drink a hard liquor when you say you're 16 or 15 and you get your hands on some and you go, what the hell are people drinking this for? Well, I mean, I know why they're drinking it, but
that's right.
So you have to suffer in order to like get a little bit of a buzz. You
gotta train yourself. But of course, here on the Fred Minnick Show, we do not condone the consumption of alcohol for anyone under the age of 21. No, neither does Bill Fay.
No, and I regret making that decision when I was 16. So
that's right. So wait till you're 21, folks. All right, to the Michter's 10-year-old. The 10-year-old showdown. Here we go. I think I sent you more than I send anybody. I sent you 6 products.
Yeah, I have to see if I can even get it open.
Oh, you haven't opened it yet. I should have told you to open it first.
No.
Oh yeah, this is
okay. You can keep talking and I'll get it.
Yeah, don't get a knife and try and cut it. Be very careful with that. People cut their hands all the time on that.
Okay. Oh no, I will definitely watch out. I just got to get it started, I think. Yeah. Well, this will be the most exciting part of the show, no doubt.
The opening of the Michter's 10-year-old. Yeah. When people use wax, which wax does a good job preserving the cork for long-term aging, it is a tough one to get off, It is hard to get off that, peel it off.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we did this one not too late in the process.
That would have been bad.
That's for sure.
All right, so when we have talked, did you get it? Close?
No, I have not gotten it yet. But no, the thing ripped off, and so now I don't have anything to grab onto.
All right, so I'll press pause here so you can get. I don't want to get you this if you want to do that. All right, so as we pour the Michter's 10, one of the movies that when we've had conversations that you bring up a lot is Independence Day, and I've just kind of, I won't say that I gathered that it was your favorite movie, but I sense that it's a movie that you were very, very close to. What was it about Independence Day that kind of hit you there and stuck around?
It was a couple of things. It was the first big movie that I ever did.
Okay.
Which is pretty amazing to start with something like that. So I'd made a couple of, I started out in the independent film business and then ended up starting to make studio movies. But smaller budget studio films. I did CV4 with Chris Rock, did a movie called Bad Girls. I did a couple of movies for Universal. And I got this opportunity, was approached by Roland Emmerich, who was the director of it, and Dean Devlin, the writer producer, to work with them and actually come in and be president of their company. And the first meeting we had once I had joined up was them pitching me the story for Independence Day. And I guess it had such a huge effect on me because it was the first big movie I did. It was sort of the first really big movie that any of us had done. And we had this incredible, it was like trial by fire, right? We were trying, I still say it's the biggest low budget movie in history. We were trying to make this incredibly complicated, amazing looking movie for, I mean, it's hard to relate because it all sounds like a ridiculous amount of money, but we made that movie for about $60 million or $65 million, which is a small fraction of what you typically make these kind of big movies for. So everything that we were doing was kind of by the skin of our teeth. And it was kind of a very intense, long process, but we had a great time. It was really like we were family. All of us were doing this amazing project. And every step of the way, and this happens in the business, I've had a couple of films like this where it just feels like every step of the way you make the right decision. Like when we were casting, the studio had all sorts of ideas for who they wanted to play the lead, but Roland early on said it's going to be Will Smith, who was, relatively unknown at that point. And they had everybody, all sorts of the biggest names in Hollywood that they wanted us to cast in that role. And we stuck with it, and obviously that was the right decision.
Will Smith was
then we get on this
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air at that point. He didn't have a this was a big move for him. No, it really was a big step for him, for sure. And then when we got on the set, just seeing the camaraderie with the actors, watching Will and Jeff Goldblum work together, you could just see that there was this energy where it was working. And then we started doing all the visual effects tests. Like the first time we did a visual effects test where we saw that mountain of fire, or that river of fire rolling down the street. And the whole time, every month, it would build up. Like we felt like, wow, we got something. This could be big. This could be big. This could be big. Then we finished the movie, and we run the first movie trailer that ever ran on the Super Bowl. And the response was insanity from then. From then on, it was just insanity. I mean, we were on this snowball that you couldn't stop. And remember, we're still working 24/7 on the movie while all this is happening. Just because we show a trailer at the Super Bowl, the movie's not done. The movie's done like a week before it comes out. So we're working away, but we're seeing all this buzz. And one of the things that really struck me is we took it to Las Vegas for the first test screening. And the audience had no idea what they were going to see. And what I'll typically do is I'll sneak into the test audience when they're waiting outside, like in the line, and just kind of listen in to see what they're talking about. And they're all going, what are we going to see? I wonder what it's going to be. Maybe it's Twister. That was also coming out that summer, right? And they named a couple other movies. Nobody named Independence Day. And I went, wow, this is interesting. So they file into the theater. Absolutely packed theater. This is for the first test screening. Nobody has any idea what they're seeing. The movie starts to roll and the title comes up, Independence Day. The entire audience stands up and just cheers for about 3 minutes. They just went insane. And we're going, oh my God, how is that even possible? Nobody's even seen any of this movie other than the little bit that's on the trailer, but that's like the level of excitement there was. And I remember the associate producer turning to me and he goes, I'm going to buy a new car. Well, that speech, that the president gave in that movie, I mean, it's arguably the greatest speech in movie history, to be honest with you. I mean, you want to get the world together, just have a bunch of aliens coming at us.
Yeah, that seems to solve a lot of issues, doesn't it? Yeah, we had another quick story about that is that originally he didn't say the words Independence Day in that speech. Dean Devlin, the writer, put that in because we were in an argument with the studio. They did not want to call the movie Independence Day. They said, it doesn't feel sci-fi. And then they came up with 30 titles. They were all horrible that they wanted us to use. And we kind of stuck with it. But he felt that if we wrote, him saying, let this day be our Independence Day, that there was no way they could change the title of the movie.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And the funny thing, they were making that argument and we were saying the movie's Independence Day. You'll get it from the trailer. The movie's going to come out on Independence Day. I mean, we had a whole marketing idea built around Independence Day that ended up really working for that.
Yeah, it's probably.
And then, of course, the marketing department did a great job too at the studio. They were amazing.
It's those kinds of things. There's always like that one guy that's in there like, well, but what if it was that? And then everybody, listens to that guy. They're like, oh, yeah. What if it was that? And I can't imagine Independence Day being named anything else. So cheers to, you said Devon?
How about Invasion Earth? I think that was, Invasion Earth was the best one they came up with. Yeah, Dean Devlin.
Dean Devlin. So here's to Dean Devlin for saving
we'll drink to that.
Our Independence Day. Ooh, that's tasting good tonight. Well, something you mentioned there that a movie is not done until a week before it comes out. I mean, what's happening? I mean, are you still shooting or are you just editing? Like, what are the? Take me through the. I guess. Take me through the process of making a movie, I guess.
Sure. So obviously we start out with a script or it's an idea that we hire a writer to write. Then you've got to get it set up at a studio. If you have a deal with a studio, like at Legendary, obviously we had a deal with the studio, so it was easy to get the project set up there. But before that, we'd have to go in and basically sell it to a studio. Once you got that, now I have to tell a little quick story about that. So Independence Day. So I told you, the guys told me the first dinner we had after I joined their company, right? I became president of Centropolis, their company. Mm-hmm. And they were pitching me the idea for Independence Day. And they said, we're going to go off. We're flying to Puerto Vallarta. We're going to write the script. It's going to take us about 6 weeks. We're going to come back. We're going to pitch it to the studios. And, we are going to tell them that we need to be greenlit immediately. We're going to get it set up in a month, and then we're going to go shoot. And I was thinking in my head, yeah, right. It never happens that fast. Never happens that fast. So they went off to Puerto Vallarta. They wrote the script in 4 weeks. They fly back. They got here on a weekend. It went out to all the studios on Monday. By, I think, Tuesday, we had an offer from every single studio except Disney. Wow. This giant bidding war started. And by Friday, we had 20th Century Fox. And part of the agreement was we got to start prepping the movie. It's greenlit immediately. That means they're going to pay all the money to make the movie. And we get to start preparing for it on Monday. So it literally happened like that. But so we go through that process. We get it set up with the studio. There's a huge amount of pre-production where we're scouting locations, rewriting the script, hiring the actors, going through table reads and everything with the actors to improve the dialogue, deciding where to shoot, which is a huge part of it, complicated part, because there are all sorts of different tax incentives depending on what state you shoot in or what country you shoot in. So that all gets settled. Then we fly all the crew out to wherever we're shooting. The shoot on a big movie can take 5 or 6 months. On a smaller movie, maybe 3 months, 2 months. And so you've got 500 people on location making the movie. And then you come back and heavy duty work starts on editing and visual effects and all that kind of stuff. And the bigger the visual effects movie is, the more time you need in post-production to develop all that stuff.
Sure.
Because on big movies like Independence Day, as I said, you're actually pushing the envelope of what's possible. I mean, you're literally hoping that the technology improves enough so you can do the stuff that you said you were going to do by the end, because it's a developing technology all the time.
Right.
So then you're going through that process. You're also, you get a first cut of the movie. You start screening it for test audiences. You develop the sound and everything, all the sound effects that go into the movie. And then after you screen it for a test audience, you may go, they're still not understanding this part, or, something's not working in the story. At that point, and remember, to release a big movie, the studio has to set the date like a year in advance or more. So they've already told us, hey, we're releasing this on July 2nd. You guys are going to be ready no matter what. And so, it gets to June and you're working on it, and you may find that there's a scene that you need to change or something. So you'll go off and shoot weeks before the movie's coming out. You might still be shooting a scene for the movie, or fixing a little thing on the end or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So it gets incredibly stressful, and there's, hundreds of millions of dollars at risk for the studio too.
So I imagine, like, COVID threw a big wrench in, we know that COVID threw a big wrench in movie release dates, but that seems like the industry kind of like pivoted to, streaming, like Amazon Prime or Disney Plus, or, Paramount with like the SpongeBob movie. I just threw that out there because my boy's probably watching it right now. But, so what's that, what have you seen, like how's the industry kind of reacted to, the shutdown of movie theaters and everything?
Well, it's been a really, really tough time for the business. I mean, it obviously killed the theatrical business, and that is the main economic driver for everything we do, certainly in the big studio movie level kind of thing. Now, and it's also obviously accelerated what's going on in the streaming world, because streamers were just, over the last 2 years, we're just starting to really compete with theatrical movies in terms of being able to make big movies that were, for what we call 4-quadrant movies that appeal to, really big segments of the population. That's obviously happened a lot faster. But it's kind of killed that theatrical experience. And also from a production point of view, obviously there's nothing more, unless you're thinking about a mosh pit, there's nothing more than shooting a movie that gets a whole bunch of people crowded into a very small space, all breathing on each other. You think about shooting if we're shooting a scene in a living room, we've got 50 people in that living room, right?
Yeah.
All packed up against each other. So it really obviously shut the whole business down for a little while in terms of being able to shoot anything. That's just slowly coming back, and these movies, but production is still not anywhere near to what it was before COVID hit. And that you're going to see the impact of that, I think, just starting now over the next few months with, less things coming out than there would normally be. Things that would have been in production couldn't really start production until later than they thought.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you've got all these movies that were supposed to come out in late 2020 and early 21 that have been postponed. So there's going to be this, once things open up, there's going to be like an incredible lineup of movies coming out in the movie theaters, which is going to be pretty exciting. Like there'll be a giant movie every week.
Yeah. I look forward to that. I miss movies. I don't think I miss movies as much as I miss live music, but I do miss them. So what did you think of the Michter's 10?
Thought it was beautiful. It's really nice. I've got a bottle of Michter's, but not this one, not the single barrel, that I really enjoy. And it's smooth. It's easy drinking, tastes great. It's hard to beat.
So now we go to the King of Kentucky. Now is the Michter's your victor of the 10-year-olds?
Wow, it would be tough between the Michters and the Henry McKenna. The Henry McKenna is pretty great. I definitely see what you see in it. Yeah, I might lean a little toward the Michters, but they're both really hard to beat.
Awesome. Well, so we have a tie, sounds like.
Are you going to break the tie, or are you not going to go out on that limb?
I'm with you. It's a taste off. I think the Michter's is bringing more butterscotchy, brown sugary. Touch of molasses. It's a tight one, man.
Yeah. As I said, though, the Michter's is pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, I think tonight I'm leaning toward the Michters. I think I'm leaning that way.
And I appreciate you sharing that bottle with me. It's gonna bring a lot of enjoyment around here for a while.
Awesome. When Shaw comes over, you'll have to. You don't tell him I sent it to you, because he's gonna be like, "Well, he didn't send me that one." I get hit up almost weekly about, "Hey, you haven't sent me any good bourbon lately."
Tell him after he goes and makes about 30 movies, then you'll send him one. And he comes on your show, then you'll send him one.
That's gonna be my play to him from now on. I'm like, "Hey, Shaw, you haven't gotten me on a movie yet, so I don't know."
Exactly.
All right, so here we are to the King of Kentucky. Now this one's packing some heat. We're looking at 131 proof, but we should never let proof be a detractor of flavor. But feel free to add water if that proof just feels like it might be too much.
I'm gonna give it a shot here.
I mean, it's coming off really heavy. I mean, it's like real heavy, like pure molasses heavy.
It's eye-wateringly heavy.
Yeah, that is
beautiful
thick.
Color, by the way.
Absolutely.
Just talking about the color, look at that. That's just beautiful.
Gorgeous. That is yummy. Yeah, it's amazing. Like, I love this product, and it's always done well in my blind tastings. I'm not in the mood for it right now. It's kind of it's kind of like, watching a movie. You're in a mood for a comedy, or you're in the mood for a certain type of food. I don't really want like the big, heavy, thick bourbon right now. I kind of want something a little softer. It's weird. It's very weird. But I'm not being analytical here. I'm just being like in a tasting moment here with a friend. So that's a very different experience than doing like a blind tasting.
Oh, for sure. But it's really it's got great flavor. It's just really bold.
It's big.
I mean, not just in terms of the alcohol content, but just the flavors are really bold, which is nice.
Yeah, it's definitely bringing it. So now we're going to go
like a licoricey kind of a bit to it.
I mean, listen, I am getting so much molasses on this. It's like I can't almost taste anything else. Like, and molasses. Molasses is just like, whether it's sorghum molasses or regular molasses, it's just it's just one of the most unique flavors. And when I get it in there, it kind of dominates. But, nose-wise, it's got some sweetness there. But it's oily, molassesy. There's some spice. The licorice is not there for me, but I think that might be also the overwhelming amount of molasses I'm getting, and I can definitely see I can definitely see that being licoricey. But I don't want to say it, but I'm going to kind of say it like I'm turned off by it tonight. Like this is not my jam, and this is tonight.
Well, like you said, it's all about what the mood is, right?
It's all about the mood. It's all about the different feel for the taste, and it's like, and what I taste today to be very different from how I taste tomorrow. And to be honest with you, it's a personal journey, and this is a shocker to me because going into this tasting, I kind of pegged that as being my top one. So there you go.
Interesting. Well, that's the way it works. Okay, I have one. I got a quick quiz for you.
All right.
I just pulled this off my wall for a second. Who's that?
Is that the kid from the Hangover?
Yes, it's Baby Carlos.
Yeah, Baby Carlos. That's actually him?
Looking good, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a shot. This is a promo shot from the movie.
That's awesome.
The kid is about 12 now.
Gosh, is that movie that old?
Yeah, 2009. Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you didn't work on the other two. Did you work on the other two?
I was president of production at Legendary, but I did not produce the other two.
Okay.
But we financed them, and I supervised production on them.
So I guess help me. I just poured the 291. So help me.
Okay.
Help my audience and essentially me understand the various roles in the movie business and what they do. Like, I understand the executive producer to essentially be the financier and the head honcho over the whole thing. Am I right in that? Is that accurate?
You know what? This answer will be kind of confusing, but it varies depending on how the movie gets set up. But I can tell you, for a producer, first of all, if you think about producer versus director, think about the producer as the general manager of a baseball team, for example.
Okay.
Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's hiring, he's putting the team together, he's handling the finances, he's got to make sure that they're making a profit, he's hiring the coach. He's working with the coach to pick all the players, all that kind of stuff. But the coach is the director, right? I mean, the director is like the coach of a baseball team. The producer has three kind of main functions, and usually when you see a movie, you'll see credits for a couple of different producers on the head credits. And between the producers and executive producers, they're filling three main roles. One is the creative role, working with the director to make the script better, working with, working to read actors to find the right actor for the role along with the director, hiring the director, right? Finding the right director. Very, very creative role for the producer there. The second role that a producer is filling is financial. The producer is, he's basically the head of that company. So he's got to go out and find the financing for it. Sometimes that means going, pitching it to studios. Sometimes it means going out and finding a bunch of investors and putting them together. So that's the second role. The third role is what sometimes in the business is called the line producer. That's the guy who's showing up with the director on the set every single day from, 16 hours a day or whatever it takes, working with the director on the spot to help the director create the movie that he wants to make. And literally making, it's pouring down rain and we got no place to go. What are we going to shoot? Figure it out. Something's, it's all the things that go, there's an actor that won't come out of his trailer. Somebody needs to go talk to him and, calm him down. Right. I mean, I've done that many times.
Really?
So it's the person who's sitting there with the director day by day, essentially as his right-hand person, helping him solve the problems and get the movie made. So that's kind of the three roles that a producer is filling. And when you see the credits, you really have no idea who's doing what. That's kind of behind the scenes. the Producers Guild is now involved. So they'll, in terms of like who gets nominated for an Academy Award, they'll usually now pick 3 people that are involved with the picture, and those will be the people that can actually get nominated. But it's, for any layman just watching the movie, it's pretty hard to tell who's doing what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
but then if you're thinking about the director is like that coach of the baseball team. The director is involved in every creative aspect and also a certain amount of the business aspects of making that movie. And in terms of how they interact, a lot of it depends on how powerful is the producer or the producers and how powerful is the director. If you're working with Steven Spielberg, that's why Steven Spielberg is producer on all his movies, right? Because there's no question who's the boss on there. But you may have a very experienced producer who's making a movie with a first-time director. He's steering that person very carefully in terms of, obviously you want to give him creative freedom, but he's going to be very involved in terms of helping that person avoid pitfalls and making sure that they're able to get the movie that they want to make.
What's a move that you've seen a director make on a set that really changed the outcome of a movie? And I know there's probably a lot of them, but again, the layman just kind of is on the outside and kind of feels like everything's in the script, everything's kind of formulated, but there's a lot of numbers moving in between. What's a move a director has made that's really changed the film?
Wow, I don't know if anything comes to mind right away. I'll start, and maybe something will come to me, but I'll start by saying that every director has a different way of working. There are, I would say at one end of the spectrum is a guy like Zack Snyder. When we're shooting 300, or the other movies we did with Zack, we did The Watchmen and we did Sucker Punch. Zack shows up in the morning and he's got a big whiteboard and it's got panels that some of that somebody else has drawn or the storyboard, and some that he's sketched out of every single shot he's going to do that day. And the panel is organized shot by shot with how he's going to do it. This is the first shot of the day. This is the second shot of the day, third shot of the day. And every time he shoots that shot, he puts a red mark through that one. That one's done. He literally has mapped out the entire thing in his head. And wow. That's, to an incredible level of detail. And then you'll see on the other end of the spectrum as a director, these tend to be more directors that are either writers or known as actors directors, where they really don't know how they're going to end up cutting the movie or even how the scene is going to play that day. They just get together with the actors, they run through things, they may come up with a whole bunch of stuff on the spot that they think is going to work, and then they set up the cameras and they run it. And they have no idea really how it's going to necessarily cut together, but it's all about how are they getting that performance out of the actor. So it's really been interesting to, I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of big directors and on a lot of different movies and kind of seen all those different styles. And it's not like one is better than the other, but it just depends on how does that person access their creativity. It's certainly a little easier to work with somebody like Zack Snyder because everybody knows what they're going to do that day, Yeah. But there's more than one way to get a great result.
Well, thanks for sharing that. We just you kind of like, it's actually a good segue into what we're tasting here. We're tasting 291. This is a Colorado bourbon. And people tend to think of bourbon just having to be made in Kentucky, but this is made in Colorado, and it's finished with aspen staves. So it's smoky. It's a very different style. I'll be fascinated to hear your thoughts on this because it's so different.
Well, it's definitely much more of it's a rye, right? So
did I send you the rye?
Spicy. Yes. I got the 291 small batch Colorado rye.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm not tasting the rye. I grabbed the wrong one. Grabbed the wrong one, Bill.
Well, I'm glad we got that right. I'm glad we figured it out right away so that we weren't going, Fred, I don't taste any of what you're doing. What's that? What are you talking about?
But I really like this distiller in Colorado. He's a bit of a maverick with some of the things he's doing, but he's also a really good guy. He's a former fashion photographer, and he used to photograph Angelina Jolie and Sam Elliott, a lot of actors, for artistic campaigns, and just a really incredible talent, kind of a new wave of talent that's entering the game. He'd be someone that I think would sit down with you and chat with you about the industry. So he's definitely an interesting cat and definitely a creative. And I think he actually has a little bit of experience in that. I think he did some photography for some of the studios back in the day, but just a great guy. Yeah. Now, when you look at the future of the movie industry, it looks. I mean, can anyone predict what it looks like in the future? Because it seems like the last couple years there's been more changes in it from a social perspective, also from a technology perspective. The movie industry, in 5 years, is going to be night and day than what it is today, for sure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, all I can do, I don't think anybody knows where it's going to end up, but we can certainly speak to the trends that are going on. On the social front, I mean, it's pretty exciting what's been going on there, that movies are getting very inclusive. They're getting very very forward. I mean, we're seeing a lot more colorblind casting, and sometimes that's sort of frowned upon to use the term colorblind casting, but the idea that you can cast really somebody of any race to play any role in a movie, right? Mm-hmm. And that's and it doesn't have to, and the race is not a factor at all in the way the way their character is portrayed. And that's an exciting development, and certainly making it much more inclusive for people of color in terms of being able to participate in the business, because they've had it tough for a very, very long time from that perspective. From the technological perspective, obviously streaming is here to stay, and it's going to become more and more a factor, more and more like the dominant force in how people get their entertainment. And what we're seeing, we're talking about this theatrical releases. What we're seeing is that's being squeezed closer and closer together with when a movie starts streaming, to where now you're seeing a lot of things, including, I think, every Warner Brothers movie that's going to start streaming essentially the day that it plays in the theaters. And that's something that would have been unheard of just a couple of years ago. It was always, you play it in the theater for 2 months, at least 2 to 3 months, and then it starts into these other platforms, because the idea is you don't want to cannibalize that theatrical, because there's so much money for us involved in that theatrical, and mm-hmm. It's also a great driver from a marketing point of view in terms of what happens with all the things down the road. But it just seems like audiences are just not willing to wait anymore. You know what I mean? So yeah. It's now becoming that idea of that you can release a movie, you can stream it as a premium experience the day that it opens. And I don't really see that going away.
Well, and I also think about all the pirating that has gone on, that used to go on. I remember when I was overseas in the military, and bootleg DVDs were coming out 3 months before anything ever showed up in theaters. And so, does the streaming does that nullify some of the pirating that's out there? I mean, or does it open it up even more?
It's a mixed bag. It's a constant problem for us. But it does help a little bit in terms of getting that movie exposed very quickly to a much bigger audience, as opposed to when we release in a theater and somebody figures out a way to get in there with a video camera and record it, and then suddenly they're making, bootleg copies of it all over the place. But it's a huge problem. I mean, I spent a lot of time in China because Legendary Entertainment, we had a lot of interest in China. And it seemed like every Chinese person I talked to had seen The Hangover multiple times. They loved it. They thought it was one of the greatest movies. They couldn't stop talking about it, right? Everybody had seen it. You know how much money we made off The Hangover in China? Zero.
Wow.
Because it was pirated. Everybody had seen a pirated copy.
Wow. So
that's changing. I mean, I think all that kind of stuff is changing for the better. That was now 12 years ago, but that's pretty tough to your business model when the biggest market by audience is basically shut down.
I mean, my books have been pirated, and we've tried. We've caught them. One of my books was like downloaded 13,000 times. And, it feels, and I know that's minuscule in comparison to The Hangover, but as like the creator of something, man, I just kind of like, it's like stabbing you in the heart a little bit. Pirating, a book or music, it just, I don't know. To me, it damages the art, and those who listen to it and enjoy it, and they just like it for free. It's just hard to understand until you've created something and you don't get money for it when someone's using it,
ultimately it's really hurting the creators, I mean,
yeah.
and you see that most starkly in the music business. I mean, when people are stealing something like that, that's right out of the artist's bottom line, out of their pocket.
And it's hard for the everyday person to appreciate that, sometimes, but if you're on the other side, it hurts. And this is, as we go to our headliner for the evening, A.H. Hirsch. This is, anytime I get to bust this out, it's a treat. Absolute treat.
$16-year. That's a
Cheers,
nice
my
dark
friend.
amber color. Cheers.
And a gorgeous color.
Very kind of got a buttery taste to me in a nice way.
Yeah, it's almost pure butter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're both kind of silent here. Now, I've had this many times before, and it's different every time. Not because the whiskey's different, but because I'm tasting it in a different time. And it is brown sugar and butter, man. And it's complicated. Mm-hmm. And it's got,
I was going to say it's got like a caramel kind of, but yeah, brown sugar would do it too, wouldn't it?
It's so beautiful. It's like it's layered.
Where's this one made, Fred?
Well, this was distilled in Pennsylvania at the former Michter's distillery there in 1974. The stocks were sold in the open market and brought to Kentucky and aged out here. and was bottled in the 1990s. So,
wow.
Yeah. A tale of two states.
Wow, it's a good example of how well something can hold up once it's in the bottle, isn't it?
Yeah. And I had to change the cork out on this one. It looks like I'm going to have to change it out again. It's a little soft there. But
now with whiskey, do you ever need to think about putting a little nitrogen in there or anything to preserve it?
Yeah,
Or
gas is starting to come a little bit more common in this space. And it's been around for a while, but you know, the fact is I see something like that, my mind is going to like, I need to call my buddy up and have him come over and we'll finish it off tonight with a cigar. And I think that's
a much better way to deal with it.
That's kind of how I think. By the way, do you smoke cigars?
We could do all this chemistry on it.
Yeah, right?
Yes, I do.
All right. Oh, next time I'll have to do some cigars. But yeah, there's so many cool things to do with whiskey with your friends. It's wonderful. But yeah, gas is that stuff is being used in a much lesser degree than wine, but it is being used. But it's not. I don't think it's as well proven and documented as it is in wine.
Right. Well, you've got something that's a lot more stable than wine, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's no yeast here. It's really all you have to worry about is the oxygen getting in. But as we kind of like, you know, assess this a little bit and, you know, kind of move on, what are your kind of aspirations in the spirit space? Do you hope to see your I guess apparatus, is that the right term, or device, or
process might be
process? Do you hope to see the your processes in you know, as common as like chill filtration?
Absolutely. No, I mean we've only shown it to a couple of distillers so far, and one of the distillers actually wants to use it to recreate their product, and they're not changing the brand or anything else. They're actually just recreating the way they make it, and by virtue of the fact that they can ultimately process it through our system. So yeah, that's where we want to end up with it.
That's awesome. Well, I look at like what we just tasted here as like one of the greats. One of the greats in whiskey. This is on my top 10 all-time greatest bourbons ever made. Mm-hmm. And I would love to know, what is your favorite all-time film? And you can't name one that you worked on. So what's your favorite all-time film?
Wow. You know what? My top 10 is not an unusual top 10 for the most part.
All right.
But if I had to pick an all-time favorite, it just comes down to the overall production and look and everything else, and it's Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh wow. That's a great one.
It's a great movie, but I'd have trouble picking. It would be Lawrence of Arabia, The Godfather, and Casablanca.
Nice.
Those are the top three. The top 10 gets a little more contemporary.
Gets a little bit more dicey.
Those are probably the top three.
All right. Of the 21st century.
Then I might think about picking one of my own films.
All right. Let's do it.
Won't.
No. Let's throw it in there. Pick one of your own.
I mean, for pure entertainment, The Hangover is pretty hard to beat.
And it's a shame it didn't win Best Picture.
Yeah, I'm shocked. Comedies don't usually do too well on Best Picture.
Comedies don't do well.
This year could be different. I think Borat has a shot at it.
Well, I mean,
it certainly had a nomination anyway. Probably not to win, but
here's the thing about Borat is that, I mean, I know that painted as a comedy, but I mean that really kind of played a pivotal role in our society, and it almost we're getting to the point in society where satire is becoming common language. It's not even satirical anymore. It's like a new form of like over dramatization, over drama, and you see it on Twitter. You see it everywhere,
right.
and everyone's just trying to call everybody out all the time. And Borat was really just kind of like a condensed version of what we see on social media every day. And I mean, it played a big role of the last year for sure.
Yeah, no question.
So do you ever get a vote in that? Do you get to play determiner of
I do.
who wins?
I get to vote in. I get to vote for. I'm a member of the Directors Guild and the Producers Guild, so I get to vote for both of those awards, directors and producers, and that's a lot of fun. And it's always interesting every year, just trying to, really differentiate when you look at a film, but the difference between the best picture and the best director. And it can be fairly subtle. I mean, there are some movies that are best pictures that are well directed, but that might not be the critical component. That'd be rare. I wouldn't say that happens very often, but there are sometimes it makes sense why there might be one and not the other. But typically, the best directed picture is also the best picture.
And best sound too, right? Like usually the best sound is very close to being either the winner or the best picture.
Yeah, but not necessarily. The best sound is will typically be associated with big movies. Like you think about 1917, and it's just because if you're working on a movie like 1917 last year, the big World War II, World War I war movie, you just have so much more, the sound is just so much more layered. You've got so much more to work with. So typically it's going to be those kind of big action movies, or big Independence Day would be another example of a movie, because obviously it's going to get a lot of attention for the sound just because of all the crazy things that we created for the movie. Little movies are typically not going to win best sound.
Sure.
It's a big movie thing. Same with best visual effects, obviously.
Well, Bill, we're coming up on an hour and a half, and when you talk with friends, you don't really realize how much you're chatting, especially when there's bourbon involved. So we now have to make the difficult decision of what our favorite was here in the tasting. I know where I'm leaning, but I'm curious to know where you are. What was your favorite that we tasted so far? Or we have nothing else to taste. What was your favorite?
Yeah, I would probably, I had a tough time just picking between the Michters and the Henry McKenna, but I'd probably still stick with the Michters. But I actually, as an experience, thought the King of Kentucky was a pretty enjoyable experience. And maybe it's just because I never drink anything that's hardly ever drink anything that high.
Nothing that's 131. Boy, it wasn't feeling right for me today. And so are you going with the King?
No, I think I'm going to stick with the Michters.
So
another drink right now.
An upset here. The Michter's 10-year-old is Bill Fay's Taste, and that upsets Henry McKenna, King of Kentucky, and A.H. Hirsch, 16-year-old. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a major upset. But you know what? It is actually tasty, and that's why we taste. We don't we taste for ourselves and don't let other people influence our thoughts. And that's, I would tell you, you did just right. You did just fine, Bill. And I'm going back to the.
I would. There are none of those three that I would have any complaints about. They're all wonderful. I'm trying the Hirsch again right now.
All delicious. And, we have to taste them again just to verify, right? Just to make sure.
No other reason. It's for we're tasting for science and for posterity here.
And America. Can't forget about America. Science in America.
Got to.
Well, what is are there any cool movies you got coming out that we can expect to see in 2021 or 2022?
Maybe 2022, but none of them are far enough along to even talk about yet. As we said before, the pandemic really shut almost everything down. There are a few things being made here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But of the couple of projects I had working on, one was something that we were working on that was going to be shot in New York, and that was just kind of an impossibility. Hopefully, maybe we'll get some traction back in there again. The issue is that every film it's kind of a fragile thing, and if it doesn't happen when you think it's going to happen, then now you kind of have to put everything back together, right? Actors. Yeah. Everything dissipates, and the question is always, can you get those pieces back together?
Yeah, I sold the film rights to one of my books, and I think they were close to like begin production or something on it, and then COVID hit, and they issued the force majeure clause, and we're still kind of like in that phase. But I can't imagine. I cannot imagine, trying to put together a movie in the past year's climate, So I look at
we've had some friends I've had a couple of friends that have had movies that they've been able to actually get off the ground. And I know one of them, I think it was the first day of shooting, and one of the actors tested positive, and they had to shut the whole thing down.
Wow.
Yeah, that's expensive.
Well, the good news is we're getting closer to herd immunity. The vaccine's getting pushed out there. And, there seems to be a little bit more understanding of how to live with the current climate. So let's hope that's the future. And by the way, Bill, I don't know if you know this, but whiskey, a lot of people say that whiskey is a very good preventative. So we're in good shape tonight.
Awesome. I'm going to keep that in mind.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. It's been great chatting with you, and I look forward to staying in touch. And I'm going to have to go back and rewatch a couple of the 300 and the Hangover, and hit you up about particular scenes down the road, because now I'm all fascinated about all these behind the scene things in your movies. So, but thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to hanging out more, and hopefully next time in person with a bit of whiskey. Cheers, my friend.
Me too, for sure. Take care, Fred. My pleasure.
And remember, vodka sucks.